Hey guys, welcome to Living in Denver, Colorado, or welcome back if you've been here before. Today, we're going to get right into it. We are going to cover the 5 reasons not to move to Aurora, Colorado.
All right, guys, we are the Mile High Property Brothers. This is my partner, Will Grimes. I am Eli Schmidt, and if this is your first time visiting the channel, definitely hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. We are constantly coming out with new videos about what it's like to live in Denver and the surrounding cities and neighborhoods. We cover food, we cover dining, nightlife, housing expenses,
marijuana,
all that good stuff, the weed out here.
In addition to all that, guys, we are also licensed real estate brokers in the state of Colorado. So if you have any specific needs, text that number, call that number below. As much as we love doing video, we love more to help you guys with any needs. So regardless of what that may be, hit us up. Give this channel a like if you like. Subscribe if you want more information. We love to continue to help you guys. With that being said, we're going to get right into the 5 reasons why you might not want to move to Aurora, Colorado.
Let's go.
All right, guys, number 1 on the list, probably the most spoken about, is the Aurora Stigma. What is that, right? So you've got North Aurora, you've got Southeast Aurora nowadays, but North Aurora kind of hugs up against Denver, and you have a lot of just the crime rate's higher over there. You know, you've got a little bit more of an urban area. It's closer to Denver. You're going to have some of those things. I want to be careful how I word that because I don't want to discourage people from being a part of like that northern Aurora area, but the crime rate is higher. Aurora Public Schools definitely not accredited as high as like a Cherry Creek Schools, which is in Southeast Aurora. But you also have a lot of just rehabilitation over there. You've got the new VA hospital, you have Children's Hospital, you have University Hospital over there, you have new townhomes, new condos. So a lot of things are getting changed over there. However, with hospitals, and hospitals bring emergencies and different things like that, right? I think you're always going to have some nature of traffic that's in that area. And if the majority of the population is over there, you're also going to have a higher crime rate. So things to think about. But that blanket statement when people say, oh, Aurora, it couldn't be more further from the truth than when you get into central and then even more extreme Southeast Aurora, where it is Cherry Creek School Districts. It's nationally ranked, phenomenal school district. Houses are a little bit more spaced out. Prices go anywhere from $400 all the way up well over $1 million. Super Southeast Aurora is probably $650 to $700, right in the heart as far as price points. The outdoor mall experiences that you have out there, you probably don't even realize you're in the same city as Aurora per se, right? So there's definitely a difference between North Aurora, Southeast Aurora. Hopefully I'm covering that stigma for you guys. Not that some of that stigma is not true, it just shouldn't be the blanket statement, and it shouldn't be across the entire city of Aurora, which takes you about 15 minutes to get across.
It's true. And Aurora, guys, it's a giant city in Colorado. We've got almost 400,000 people in Aurora alone. So it just makes sense that, you know, there's going to be some of the separation. And yeah, there's going to be some not so nice parts, but then other phenomenal parts. But what we're trying to emphasize here is that as you're talking to people about moving to Colorado, especially if you're coming from out of state and maybe you're talking to some locals, you may hear that. And I mean, Aurora has literally something for everybody, so just be cautious when you hear those blanket statements.
I was born in Aurora. I came back out of the military. I was a police officer in Aurora, so I've probably got a good experience as far as both sides of the table here. A lot of people that speak about Aurora, they've never lived in Aurora or been to Aurora, so that stigma usually comes from the outside. So just do your homework, guys, is what we're trying to say. Make sure you do your homework and figure out where you want to live.
All right, so number 2, I-225.
Right, so I-225 is a little roundabout around the heart of I-25, which passes through the heart of Denver. 225 is supposed to be this option to obviously get to the eastern port of the Denver metro area. It also cuts through Aurora. It's supposed to save you some time with all of the population growth here and the traffic patterns. Sometimes it takes you 20 minutes just to go from I-70 on to 225. They have done some expansions in some of the areas. However, there are some spots where it goes back down to 2 lanes as you're passing through, and it's not necessarily saving you any time. If anything, it might hurt you if you're trying to go around, unless you're going to Aurora specifically for a reason.
I feel like they're always working on 225.
Feels like they're always working on it. Yeah, 100%. And part of the downfall is, you know, if you live in Southeast Aurora, if you live in some parts of Parker, you're just going to have to hit 225 to get home, regardless. And again, it's just not really saving you any time. Traffic as a whole with major cities that are growing, I think are always something, but 225 tends to be one of those headaches. Some of these other highways and byways that they've developed in Colorado have actually done pretty well holding up to the population I-225, I don't know if that just got put on the back burner. It definitely wasn't increased in enough time to plan for that expansion.
I will say this, though. It's definitely better than it was, in my opinion. In the past, I used to take that road long time ago, and it was terrible all the time. More often than not now, I feel like it's not as bad, but definitely worth mentioning. I-225 in Aurora is definitely a main thoroughfare that you'll see a lot.
All right, guys, number 3 on the list, real estate prices. Obviously, with a population influx in Colorado as a whole, but specifically that Denver metro area, so any of your suburban areas that surround Denver are starting to increase in price. Aurora being one of the third largest city in Colorado, a lot of your population is going to flood into that. We're definitely one of the closest that backs up to Denver. It's probably filling up first versus like an Arvada or a Golden. And they're building out here to hold that population as well. So prices have increased drastically.
They have. And to make it worse, Aurora is kind of notorious for having some affordable places to live, affordable single-family homes. In the past, you back up 5-10 years, you could find a decent home at a cheap price. Not that it's not affordable now, but it's definitely not cheap.
Even some of the older parts of Aurora, what they call, what we've been calling North Aurora on the northern side because of Ann Schutz's campus with all the medical facilities that are over there. A lot of folks are coming in and remodeling those homes and selling them for top dollar. So depending on what you're looking at, you're not necessarily getting a cheaper price in North Aurora versus moving to the outskirts, southeast or east Aurora. Murphy Creek is a great option. Take a look at that. Super affordable prices, but you're way out east. You're kind of away from a lot of things, but could be an option for you. But definitely real estate prices have gone up a lot due to that population increase.
Yeah, and if you're looking for more specifics about neighborhood prices for Aurora homes, we have another video which we will link right up above with the top 3 neighborhoods to live in Aurora. We did that a couple months ago. Definitely click on that link if you want to dive into Seven Hills and some of the other areas that we're mentioning now.
All right, guys, number 4, it's going to be altitude. Now, if you're not from Colorado, just Colorado as a whole, it's going to take you time to get acclimated to the altitude. If you're working out, if you're going for walks and exercising, or just walking around, depending on who you are, you're going to have some type of time frame that it's going to take you to get used to the altitude. Aurora is in between that 5,000 to 6,000 feet in elevation. So even though you're not in the heart of the mountains, believe it or not, we're not that far below from that. So when you're living here and you think, oh, well, if I go to the mountains, it's going to be hard to breathe, but as long as I'm in suburbia, I'm okay. Not necessarily, especially, again, if you're not from Colorado, you're going to have to deal with some of that.
You are, and one of the best things about Aurora is Aurora Reservoir and all the active things that you can do out here as far as working out and going on jogs and going to the dog park at Cherry Creek. You can be really active in Aurora, and again, it is just important that you make sure you hydrate, because even though we're not called the Mile High City like Denver is, you're definitely still a mile high, so don't forget that.
Hydrate or die. All right, guys, finally, our 5th one for reasons maybe not to move to Aurora. And it doesn't really have a title, but I want to get into and kind of explain it. So Aurora is definitely identified a lot as like a suburban area, right? And like and there's plenty of suburbia out here and you can live, but it's also the 3rd largest city in Colorado. So you don't necessarily have like the downtown buildings and skyrisers, but you have all of those brand new hospitals we've been talking about. You do have some of the heart of Aurora with some bigger malls. And you're going to get a lot of that population draw because of that. So you're kind of in the middle. Like, you've got suburbias and benefits to that, but then you've also got like some of that like bigger city environment, which is going to necessarily, it's going to bring more people. It's also going to bring more crime because of that. So it just doesn't necessarily, I guess to a lot of people, it doesn't have an identity. Like, you're suburbia, but you're not. You're definitely not a Parker, right? And you're a city, but you're definitely not Denver. So there's just some things, and I think that's why a lot of people go back and forth between whether it's good or it's not. The bottom line is you're going to have to find your part of Aurora that works for you. If it does work for you, I would stay away from blanket statements. Just because it does have some city feel as you get closer to Denver doesn't mean you can't find those phenomenal suburban areas as you move east and southeast into those areas in Aurora. But because it doesn't really have one of those identities, sometimes you just got to come in, get a feel, and take some time in there for yourself and really figure out what's the right fit for you guys.
Yeah, so even though this video is called the 5 worst things about Aurora, Colorado, I have a confession to make. It's actually one of my favorite places.
It's not that bad.
It is. When we have clients that are moving into town and maybe they're kind of open to some options, they're coming from out of state and they're not really sure where they want to live, Aurora is always on the top of that list of our recommendations.
Correct, especially the central and the southeastern areas. And a lot of people, until they've seen it, they're not necessarily open to it. But, if you're watching this video and you're from out of state, and if you're looking at it and if you're thinking like I usually think, like, hey, if this is the worst thing that they have to say about Aurora, maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah.
You're right. It's all going to depend on where you fall location-wise in Aurora, what the school districts looks like, what the proximity to Denver looks like, what your style is like. Do you want to commute to the mountains? Do you not? Are you an outdoorsy person? Are you not? You just got to find the right fit.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, there you have it, guys. There are your 5 reasons not to move to Aurora, in case those apply to you. Guys, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. Again, we're going to throw this number up. If you have any questions, throw us a text, throw us a phone call. We are the guys that answer and that respond to text messages. And again, just as much as we love making these videos, we would love to help you with all of your real estate needs. If you guys have any further questions, reach out. Pay attention to some of those other videos. If you have questions, they might have been answered already. They're on the channel. We'll look forward to seeing you guys soon.
We'll see you next time, guys.
See ya.